Well, hello there, and welcome to the Weekend Update. I'm Jim Harrington.
And I am Bill Knight. Well, it's Saturday. Lots of crazy things in the news, but I guess the Comey thing still kind of lingers on.
Yeah. Actually, Bill, it's kind of getting bigger by the day.
It's growing.
Yeah, but you know what's interesting? He's going to be. The headline says, James Comey to be escorted by Secret Service to D.C. field office for interview over Trump assassination plot, which sounds like, he's being summoned, not just summoned, but he's being taken. But then if you read the story, it says he volunteered to go. He wasn't required to be there. And by the way, they say that meeting is next Friday.
Mm-hmm. What's going to happen between now and then?
Why don't they give him a month? Give him a month. Why just a week? Give him a month to work on his story and get his ducks in a row.
He's been a storied guy. I guess that's the way to say it. He's always had a lot of weird things to say, invented stories. He's stuck his foot in it before, almost like he wants to get caught.
Well, maybe he has a death wish. I don't mean that physically or literally. I mean, maybe as far as his reputation and career is concerned. Maybe he's self-destructing. There are people like that. There are people
they self-destruct on purpose, or maybe he's doing it. You want to throw a conspiracy out there. Maybe he's doing it because he's in too deep and he doesn't know how to get out. So he's just going to go, okay, I'm going to do this crazy stuff, get caught for it, and then I can sit there and come clean. Which I wouldn't believe a damn thing that comes out of his mouth anyway.
We just finished posting on our new website, jimandbill.com, jimandbill.com. I don't want you to forget that. It's an interesting site. It's got a few more things on it than itsanotherday.com, which is also ours. But if you go to itsanotherday.com, I think we have a link to jimandbill.com. Do we have a link to, does it go, can you go from one to the other, Bill, yet?
Yeah, I believe you can go to jimandbill.com, but I would just, for practical purposes, I would just go to jimandbill.com because it does link to the podcast. Mm-hmm. It is the natural source now, the organic source for everything that we do. And like you said, there's other articles there, but this one's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Just posted today, actually. Just published today.
I think it was written yesterday, put the seal of approval on it and said, that's interesting.
There was something, Bill, that and this is where it ends up being in this article. There was something that I found, and nobody's talking about it at all. So we're going to talk about it here. A lot of you are going to be surprised by this. But Comey's message, his seashell message that he had, 86-47, that was supposedly the day before yesterday that he posted that. Mm-hmm. And that day was 8,647 days since 9/11.
Yeah.
Now, look at. You call it could be coincidence, but it's a heck of a coincidence, don't you think?
Personally, when you say coincidence, coincidence can work in a lot of different things. But when it comes to, not per se conspiracies, but when it comes to politics, there are no coincidences in life like that, but this article, as you will probably point forward, showcases a lot more coincidences, things that, is it coincidence or not? But one thing that nobody came up with.
This is another Jim and Bill original. We should get
a badge.
Something. We should maybe get an announcer to read that. Jim and Bill original.
We have big voices. We'd have to get a limp voice person to do it.
Here's another Jim and Bill original.
Tell them what we discovered. We were talking about this a couple of days ago.
Okay, well,
we figured it out.
They are taking Juan O'Savin, who is apparently the guy that heads up QAnon.
He pronounces it 107.
107, yeah. Yes. 107. So they're going, oh, okay, well, he's got a penchant for loving James Bond, and so like it's John 007 or something like that. But we're going 107. Could that be, I don't know, a date? 1-1-07. So January 7th. What would
Well,
even
who does he? Who do people say he might be?
well, they think he could be, John F. Kennedy Jr.
Now he has not to my knowledge, but I don't think the guy's ever come out and said, "No, that's not me. Trust me, that's not he."
He's been asked, and he
Yeah.
just ignores the question.
Kind of sidesteps it. Yeah.
Yes.
Which leads
so-
to the mystery of the whole image. People say, "Oh,
So John F. Kennedy Jr., how would 107, January 7th, relate to him?
well, we thought about it for a moment, and Bill, tell them what we found out."
Well, we found out that is the birthday of his wife.
The birthday of John F. Kennedy Jr., his wife, Carolyn Bessette Kennedy,
Is 107.
January 7th. Now,
Think about it.
that could be just another clever coincidence.
It really
Yeah.
could be. But when you take it all and put all these little things, these dots all connect.
And by the way, I've never heard anybody make that connection. Now, that doesn't mean somebody hasn't.
Well, our story's been out for, 30 minutes or something like that. I checked. Nobody was talking about it. But, somebody can take it and go, I got an idea. I've had a news flash.
Yeah.
And that happens.
Yeah. But the thing is, people say, well, it's just another conspiracy theory. You know what they say about conspiracy theories? Conspiracy theories are just theories until someone proves them right.
Yeah. Hey,
Then-
we're not saying anything about this. We're just saying, isn't it odd? Isn't it strange that all these things, what do you think? Because we don't draw any conclusions. Because I don't know that you can. I don't know that you can't. Just, it's interesting. Things that make you go,
And the thing is, we bring this up on a Saturday show because our Saturday shows are we give them more flexibility. We can bounce around in areas we don't really bounce around in Monday through Friday. But it does make you think, doesn't it? And I think that
Yeah.
other thing we were talking about, which I don't hear anybody talking about either, is that when Comey put that 8,647 message on the beach, that was exactly the number of days from 9/11 to that date. I mean, that could be a coincidence, but that's an amazing coincidence.
what you got to wonder is why would he do that on that anniversary that coordinates Trump into it, 8647 and 911?
Now, there's a liberal talk show podcaster out there who I guess he's saying that the FBI stopped by his house, and I guess they asked him questions because the day that was made public, which was yesterday, he posted a sympathetic it's easy for me to say, a sympathetic image, meaning 8647, on his website, and that didn't go over well with the Secret Service, so they had a little talk with the guy. Personally, I think, I've never heard of the guy who had that on his website. I think it was a promotional piece. He figured he'd coattail his little message, with the story, and maybe get
It's
some
news
publicity.
now. I
Yeah.
mean, it's on our website, 8647, and 107 is on our website. And because it's a news story, it's not publicity. If there's any publicity there, it's us talking about the story right now, and the story in and of itself. Our creative writers, collaboration between us, came up with the story. Thank you very much, and there it is. That's the way.
Yeah, I think that we're onto something here. Look, it could be a coincidence. We know that, all right? And I don't follow 107 like I used to. When back in 2020, 2021, when I first heard of the guy, I listened to him kind of for a while because he's a smart guy. What you cannot you cannot give him credit for being smart. He's smart, and he's very well versed, and he sounds like somebody who actually could have the connections that he says he has.
Well, I'm just wondering if actually it's, two mints in one, if it's two people kind of cavorting under one uniform name. You know what I mean? To where...
Well, I don't know. I
see, again...
Let me ask you a question, Bill.
Sure.
Do you think there are conspiracies in our government?
Oh, absolutely. I think they go back for a long time. I think there are things we'll never know the answer to.
Right. So when people have conspiracy theories, they shouldn't be just dismissed. People shouldn't say, well, he's being ridiculous, because there are a lot of things out there that have been proven to be truthful down the road. Go ahead.
Let me ask you a question. Have you ever done something in your life that you go, no one will ever see the light of day of that piece of knowledge. I will never tell anybody. Nobody will ever know. You'll take it to your grave. It might be something simple and stupid, but you just don't want anybody to know. It's your guarded secret. It may not be anything that big, but you're gonna hold that secret dear.
Yeah. I think everybody has those things, don't you think?
So in a roundabout way, people going, I wonder, are they holding out something? Well, that's a conspiracy, a conspiracy of sorts.
Yeah.
But everybody's got a secret. This nation's built on secrets. But while we sort through the secrets, why don't you look up the article and take time to like and share the program?
Everything that we talk about in that article is something that has been published already and talked about before. We just kind of put the pieces together. It's not that we made stuff up. We do theorize a little bit in it, but that's what we can do. That's what our job is. We do the show. So James Comey going to speak with the Secret Service. Why do they give him a week, Bill? I would think that if he's being seriously looked at, I would think they would go to his house like today or even yesterday and say, Mr. Comey, please get your coat. We're going to go for a little ride. We have some questions to ask you, and they have to be asked in a controlled environment downtown, so let's go. He shouldn't be given preferential treatment because he's a former FBI director. Just because a guy had a high position at one time in the past shouldn't give him, well, look at it didn't give President Trump any points when he was dragged into these ridiculous court cases. You would have thought that if they respected positions, they would not have done what they did to President Trump, the 45th president. They didn't care. I mean, if they had to drag him by the scruff of the neck, they would have done it gleefully, and they would have had cameras videotaping it. So why should Comey be any different? I hear the people on the left poo-pooing it like, he's the former FBI director. Well, he should have known better. The guy, as a former FBI director, should have known better. I mean, there are mall cops that know what 8647 stands for. No, I don't mean to be put down mall cops for saying that, but I mean the lowest guy on law enforcement's rung, a part-time weekend traffic cop or something, they know what 8647 means. The FBI director was surprised? No. And Bill, it sounds like Washington's in cover-up mode.
Oh, I would believe it is. Absolutely.
We'll give them a week. We'll give them a week to put a story together that the public will actually, we'll give them a week so the story kind of fades out. So when we interview the guy, it'll be an also-ran story. Other things of importance will have taken the headlines away from this story. It's a bigger story than you can imagine. But you know what else is another big story that the media is dragging its feet on?
What's that?
Biden's incompetence, Biden's dementia. Greg Gutfeld was on the 5 yesterday talking about Biden's dementia and the media. And listen to this.
This is bigger than Watergate.
Yeah.
This makes Watergate look like a parking ticket. We don't need to move forward. We have to move backwards. There was this other tidbit. Cabinet members believe the president could not be relied on to respond to a crisis at night.
Yep.
That means when Biden was president, he was pure 25th Amendment material. How do we know this? We found out on May 15th, 2025, a year or two, maybe longer after the fact. So this book isn't telling on Joe. Joe's pathetic and sad. It's telling on itself. You know, when does information become so urgent that you don't save it for your stupid book? If this were Trump, if any of this information were about Trump, they wouldn't have saved it for a book because remember, while this was happening, Trump wasn't even president, and they were saying he was an existential risk. He was a threat to democracy. While they were saying Trump was a threat to democracy, they had an incapacitated president that they were covering up for. It's just, it's insane. This story is so big that I believe the books are designed to kind of let the air out of it and just like, let's get past this. We can't let them do this. We can't. This is a huge deal.
Greg is right on the money with that.
Yeah.
It is a huge deal. The thing that's amazing is that for 4 years, the media pretended everything was fine. Everything's fine here. Nothing to see. It's just Joe. You know, it's Joe's personality. The fact that he was shaking hands when he finished his speech, he literally turned to his right, shook hands with the air. He shook hands in front of a crowd of people and on television. He turned, he stepped away from the podium and shook hands with the air. And nobody said, there's something wrong with the guy. No.
When do you think Joe really started going down? 2020 when he came in?
No.
2021, 22, or 23?
He probably started going down in like 2016. He's been going down. It's been a downhill slide for years. I remember hearing him being interviewed in 2019. Peter Doocy was following him in New Hampshire on the campaign trail in 2019, and I can remember him snapping at Doocy like a lot of when old men get tired and testy for no good reason. They'll get surprisingly in like the snap of a finger, they'll get angry. I've seen it on numerous occasions when a guy's slipping. He'll try to be normal, and then it's like someone hits a switch. Get away, they almost turn into a different person. I saw him do that in an interview with Peter Doocy. That was 2019, and nobody said a word. The media looked at him through his inauguration, through everything that he did. There's a look, and you probably have seen it, Bill, when older people have dementia. When they don't stand with their arms straight down by their side. They actually kind of stand with their slumped shoulders and their hands over their thighs. You know what I'm saying? It's like their hands. That's how Biden stood a lot when he was finished speaking in public. It was sad to watch, and it would have been acceptable, I guess, to say, well, he's got dementia, if it wasn't for the fact that they were covering up for a guy who was the president of the United States, the leader of the free world, and the guy who had the trigger to the nuclear arsenal. I mean, but for the grace of God, we didn't have a major conflagration.
Can you imagine if you were running around in a dark room or a forest? It was pitch black, and you couldn't see anything. Now take that feeling and that thought and put that into your mind with you trying to find your thoughts, your images, everything that there is to make sense of anything. It's probably how Joe felt, because dementia is a terrible, debilitating disease. And if he's got it and he had his trigger on the nuclear button, Could you imagine if you've got a loaded gun and you're hearing things that go bump in the night, but you can't see anything, and all of a sudden you see the twinkle of something and you're scared the hell? Almost said a bad word.
Would you?
You might shoot.
Go into a assisted living center and go into the memory ward or the dementia ward, as some call it, and hand a patient a loaded weapon? You would laugh. You'd say, that's ridiculous. We would never do something like that. Yet there were some people who handed him not just the loaded gun, but the loaded nuclear arsenal. I mean, the guy could have awakened in the middle of the night and decided that we were being attacked and done something completely wacko. You know, but which goes to the point, who the hell was in charge? Who was making the decisions?
Well, we had a prime example of that when a famous actor just recently died along with his wife. He was going through, dementia of sorts.
Right.
I mean, they were living in rat feces and everything else because he hadn't, a walk from the living room to the kitchen or to the bedroom was like an excursion across country without a map for him.
Well, his wife, we're talking about Gene Hackman, of course.
Yeah.
Gene Hackman's wife was the first to pass away, apparently, and she had died in one end of their big, big house. And it would seem that Hackman wasn't aware that she had passed for at least a week before he died.
Mm-hmm.
He was on the other end of the house, and like you say, it probably was too confusing to get from one end of the house to the other.
He probably he got immune to the smells, the food and everything there, and the dog and the droppings. That had to be a foul, disgusting mess. Now, I only point that out because Joe, they were running around behind him cleaning things up. And there are times when it looked like he had some problems, and I'll just leave it at that.
Well, we
they
talked
ignored
about it
him.
on occasion, and we laughed because we thought that can't be the case, but it actually could be the case. Mark Halperin was talking about the failure of journalism during that whole term in office. And
It wasn't a failure; it was a deliberate, and they should be held accountable.
I agree 100%. Here's Mark Halperin.
And then you've got, at CNN, this guy Brian Stelter, who's their media reporter, who's an ally of Jake Tapper to protect Tapper's image, to enhance Tapper's image. He's got a media newsletter. He's supposed to cover the media. Guy doesn't write about the biggest failure in the history of American media. Instead, he writes about how great Tapper's book is. And today, in his newsletter, guy's a fan of irony. He writes about how it was so important for Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson to have the truth in their book, the full truth, that they hired the head of the New Yorker's fact-checking department to fact-check their book. Okay? Again, the job of a media reporter, I would think, is not to protect and promote his colleague. And this is no innocent here, Brian Stelter. In addition to promoting and protecting Jake Tapper, Brian Stelter has been over the course of the entire Biden presidency, one of the biggest critics of those on the right and those few people like me in the independent media who tried to hold Joe Biden accountable. He's accused us of being propagandist, of celebrating cheap fakes and deep fakes. I don't understand someone whose job it is to hold the media accountable, to not hold not just his own network, but every news organization in the country who now it's clear participated in a cover-up, some because of threats, some because of a desire to help Joe Biden win. Massive cover-up. And instead of pointing out the flaws in the book, he writes he cites the favorable reviews the book has gotten from news organizations like the Washington Post and the New York Times who participated in the cover-up and whose failure was manifest. He cites the favorable reviews, and then the Twitter account of the book for the book tweets out Brian Stelter's citations. It's nothing short of journalistic corruption. And it's missing the moment. The moment now for the Democratic Party is to acknowledge that, of course, we all saw with our own eyes, not in private meetings on C-SPAN, the public manifestations of Joe Biden's decline. We all watched as the media, not the conservative media, but what I call the dominant media, simply pretend it wasn't happening, attack those who pointed it out. And now everybody in the media say, well, we don't need to acknowledge our own failure. We'll just say Joe Biden shouldn't have run, and people like Chuck Schumer should have called him out. It's a big failure, and it's missing the moment. Okay, it's missing the moment. We'll keep watching it. Book comes out next week.
I don't know whether the media ever recovers from this. The media as we know it now, I guess, what I'm saying, mainstream media, because they have proven that not only did they lie, I could see if they missed a story, like if they didn't follow up on a story like that should have been followed up with, and that's a short period of time, maybe a month or two. But this was an intentional cover-up for 4 years. As a matter of fact, a lot of them that still try to cover it up. I mean, how do you do that? How do you actually turn your back on the truth and lie to the American people for the sake of what? The deep state? Who are they actually protecting or helping? They weren't helping the American people. They weren't helping you or me to, get what was really going on in Washington. They were covering up for somebody. There had to be some profit in it for them. Maybe they got accounts. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. I don't know what they're up to. All I know is that the media, the one thing that they've got is control, because we let them have it, of the mainstream news that's out there. So they control the agenda, so to speak. They're going to find a way to bury it, and make it like it never happened, because our memory span is
They're
short.
good at that, Bill.
Yeah.
They're good at that. I mean, how many stories have you and I covered over the past, I don't know, we've been doing this is our 4th year doing this podcast.
Well, your favorite story goes back a couple of years. The 30 tons of ammonium nitrate.
Yes.
Missing from a train. Just poof, it's gone.
60,000
And we're waiting
pounds.
for one day to come back and go poof.
Yeah. 60,000 pounds. How do you lose that? Would someone tell you, how do you lose 60,000 pounds of anything? Never mind ammonium nitrate. And Bill, they've never said, oh, we found it. It's okay. Everyone relax. They just let it disappear. No big deal. Nothing to see here, folks. Just keep walking along. Nothing to see. I find that amazing. The fact that we had over 100 food processing plants destroyed in the last 2 years. Nobody said a friggin' word. Nothing.
No.
But yet,
now
now they're complaining because there's a beef shortage in our country.
Well, and the other thing they're not talking about is the worm.
The screw worm. Yeah, I know.
The screw worm, which, you eat the meat that's got the worm, you're screwed. And
Yeah, you
not
are
in a good
indeed.
way. Let's just put it that way.
Yes.
It's not a happy ending for you.
That makes you want to become a vegetarian real fast, doesn't it? Holy smokes.
Well, yeah, and now they're talking about things that are out there in the whatever you call the world, the vegetarian world, I guess, that there are things out there. There's a plant out there that is indigenous to the United States and is rearing its ugly head all over the place.
Well, what Bill Gates and Klaus Schwab want us to eat? They want us to eat bugs. They have plenty of protein, and you'll get used to it. There's a lot of bugs out there. Forget calling your pest control guy. Just get a fork and a plate and go for it.
Let me ask you a dumb question. I mean, they want us to reduce the population to what?
550 million. That's what they talk about at Davos.
So you'll have billions of people that will get to take a nap forever. What are they going to do with all those bodies? Are we
well, you ever see
go,
Soylent Green?
I was just going to say, Soylent Green. Are we going to solve the food supply for a long time? Have this little Soylent Green wafer. You'll love it.
What was that great line? They eat people.
Yeah.
Charlton Heston, I think it was. Hey. I've heard, actually, don't laugh, I've actually heard it was considered at one time what to do with so many dead bodies that are out there. Can they be utilized in some other fashion other than just simply burying them? Is there a way?
Recycle the body. We turn them into food or turn them into some kind of product.
Yeah. Have a human compost. Ay.
Fertilizer.
There's some people out there, they
Fertilizer for the screw worms.
There used to be a rock and roll song, Too Much Time on My Hands. Some people have too much time on their hands.
We have 24 hours to think about weird stuff like that. So.
Hey, listen, do us a favor. We would appreciate you taking a moment during the course of your day and like and share our show, please. Tell your friends about what we do here. I wanted to play this next cut because I found it really interesting. I enjoy the lineup on Newsmax at nighttime from like 5 o'clock on, from Carl Higbee to Rob Schmidt to Rob Finnerty to Greg Kelly. They're all really good talk show hosts, and they do a really good job with guests and stuff like that. And they've been doing it consistently. Rob Schmidt ended his show yesterday with a cut that I found really, really interesting. Most people see the political side of Donald Trump. They see the politician, the leader of the free world. There's another side to Donald Trump that we don't see. They took a microphone and a camera and went down to Grand Central. Rob Schmidt did. And he interviewed some people who were going in and out of Grand Central. It's a busy place, folks, any time of the day. Grand Central's a really busy place. I used to go there every day when I worked in New York. I used to take a train from Grand Central all the time, and it's just busy. It's the nature of the place. So if you want to get people and you want to take them aside for a second and get a kind of an evaluation of what's going on in their mind and what they're thinking politically, that's a good place to do it. So he bumped into, he cornered this young, I say young, she's in her 50s, black woman, and she was articulate, and her story just captivated me. Now, the recording itself is a recording off television at a little bit of a distance, so you're going to hear some room noise, but it's worth hearing this little story. Listen very carefully. This is Rob Schmidt, how he ended his show last night.
All right, finally tonight, yesterday we were out asking New Yorkers about the Tish James probe, doing a little interview right there by Grand Central in Manhattan. We met a woman named Debbie who's been living in New York for 50 years. And this woman blasted Tish James, said she loves Trump, says Trump saved her life one night in New York long before he was president, back in the Apprentice days. Told us quite a story. Take a listen.
Trump saved my life, literally. My dad and my mom passed at the same time. I was in a bad place. I was going towards the Brooklyn Bridge. Don't ask me why, but I was. Donald Trump was standing on 97th Street in Broadway. He was at a friend's birthday party. And when he saw me coming past, I was hysterical in tears. And he gently grabbed my arm. He was like, whoa, wait a minute, are you okay? And he said, well, I don't know what you're gonna do right now, but whatever it is, forget about it. Take it out of your head. Your mom and dad wouldn't want that. And he talked to me till I forgot all about what I was gonna do. So he said, let me pray for you. So when I went to get my keys out of my pocket, and I opened my hand, he had placed a folded up, real small, folded up $100 bill in my hand. I framed it, literally, and this is a true story. He saved my life. Yeah, he did. So anybody that has anything bad to say about Trump, did it, because he's a good man.
That's something else. What a story. And you hear stories about him like that all the time, too. You don't hear those stories about Obama, Hillary, Joe Biden.
Wow. Now, if you had a problem hearing that, I mean, I just had to play that. This little woman lost her mom and her dad at the same time, and she was lost and confused and devastated.
Out of her right mind, Trump comforted her.
She was
got
walking
her back
to the Brooklyn
to the light.
She was walking to the Brooklyn Bridge, and everybody knows what she intended to do. She intended to commit suicide. and she bumped into Trump, a young Trump. By the way, that was what was it, in the 90s? So, it was a younger Trump,
Well, it's 40 years ago.
yeah.
So what is he now?
He's close to 80, so he's in his early 40s, young, handsome guy with all the money in the world, rich guy. And he sees this poor lady, devastated. Obviously, she must have been in tears. And he stopped. He could have turned his back on her, like so many people probably did that day. But he walked to her, and he said, "Oh, wait a second, what's the matter?" And she told him her story, I guess. And she was devastated and in tears. And he said, "You gotta get that out of your mind." He said, "Let me pray for you." I know. I mean, you hear all these stories about Donald Trump, the playboy, Donald Trump this, Donald Trump that. But he said, "Let me pray for you." And then without telling her, without making a big deal out of anything, he slipped her $100.
And let me tell you something. Back then, you're saying, "Oh, well, it's $100. Come on." That might have been to her like $1,000 back then.
Absolutely.
In that day and age, if somebody walked up to me and said, "Hi, Bill. Hey, how's your day going?" "Well, I don't know. Let me shake your hand." And when my hand goes away, I go, $100. I would have been happy. That's groceries, going out to dinner. That's doing a lot of different things. Gas in the tank. $100 went a long way.
And this lady, she probably was broke. She was broke spiritually. Her morale was broken. She had nothing. I'm sure she felt there was nothing happening in her life. Her parents taken at the same time. And she said, "No, don't ever say anything bad about Donald Trump. He's a good man. He's a good." And by the way, did you hear in that interview, 40 years later, she still started to cry when she was recounting that story. Yeah. It still was an emotional moment in her life. And, there's a saying, Bill. It's not what you do when people are looking. It's what you do when people aren't that really tells us what kind of man you are.
Well, think about every time he's dodged a bullet. Each dodge, does that account for something that he's done good that we don't know about, like that?
It could be. But the man has been touched by something.
Mm-hmm.
The man has been touched by something. I'm not saying he's perfect, by the way. And by the way, I don't think he'd say he's perfect.
Nobody is perfect. We all have our indiscretions, and if we want to talk about them, then call us up. We'll air your dirty laundry for you. Nobody's perfect, but we all have good within us. He just doesn't sit there and flaunt it from a flagpole.
No. In the meantime, we have guys like Comey implying that he should be taken out. They asked Trump, by the way, about that comment. And I think he was on his airplane flying back. He said this.
He knew exactly what that meant. A child knows what that meant. If you're the FBI director and you don't know what that meant assassination. And it says it loud and clear. Now, he wasn't very competent, but he was competent enough to know what that meant. And he did it for a reason, and he was hit so hard. Because people like me, and they like what's happening with our country. Our country's become respected again, and all this. And he's calling for the assassination of the president.
Obviously, he apologized and said he wasn't calling for violence. But
look, he's a very bad...
What do you want to see happen? What do you want to see happen?
I don't want to take a position on it because that's going to be up to Pam and all of the great people. But I will say this: I think it's a terrible thing, and when you add his history to that. If he had a clean history, he doesn't. He's a dirty cop. He's a dirty cop. And if he had a clean history, I could understand if there was a leniency. But I'm going to let them make that decision.
Yeah, I wish Pam would get off her, her gluteus maximus. Hey, listen, while you have a moment, like and share our show, okay? We would appreciate it. So there was a decision yesterday that came down from the Supreme Court temporarily blocking the Trump administration from deporting dangerous Venezuelan gang members under the Alien Enemies Act.
What is wrong with this country?
Well, let me explain. A lot of people have jumped to a conclusion that that was the decision. That was it. There's nowhere to go. And I that was my first reaction too, because even
I know it's temporary or something.
Yeah, even President Trump jumped to that conclusion when he first heard it. He wrote a thing on Truth Social.
He got mad.
Yeah, he got very mad. But it's actually something that the other side voted to not have happen. They didn't want to have the Supreme Court send it back down to a lower court for the lower court to decide what is an accepted period of time. That you know what I'm saying? Essentially, it's an unsigned.
You have to define it.
Yeah, it's an unsigned order. The High Court said the Trump DOJ did not give the Venezuelan enough time to challenge their removal. So under these circumstances, notice roughly 24 hours before removal, devoid of information about how to exercise due process rights to contest that removal surely does not pass muster. The unsigned decision read. Justices Alito and Justice Thomas, the only justices, in my opinion, on the court worth their salt, were against this. But what happens is it goes back down to the lower court, and they'll decide how much notice detainees must be given prior to removal.
So what would be fair?
Well,
24, 48 hours?
They may say 48 hours, 2 days.
Is that too long? Because you can do a lot in 48 hours.
Yeah. I don't think that they should be detained. I think they should be sent back. Mm-hmm. People say, well, they have to give them due process. Well, they give them due process. They arrest them. They put him into a they put him into a cell. That's process. They then determine whether they're citizens or not citizens. When they determine they're not citizens, they put them on an airplane or a bus, and they send them to their home country.
Well, when does the clock start ticking on how much time they should be served? The moment they're picked up?
I would think.
So, if 48 hours passes, a week passes, or if it's 48 hours, but they're locked up for 10 days, time served, get the hell out of here.
See,
bye-bye.
They are screwing up our country. I'm talking about the justice system. Mm-hmm. I was thinking about this yesterday. I don't know whether they're going to allow us to survive as a nation. When I say allow us, I think Trump was putting it all together. He was kind of picking up the pieces. He was reassembling our country because I think Biden destroyed it. He cut it into pieces, and he just did a terrible job, in my opinion. Trump came back and he said, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to clean up the border, which he did, locked it down, which he did. We're going to go after the people who were here with no permission, and we're going to politely put them on buses and airplanes and ship them back to where they came from. Now, that's a pretty civil way of doing things, if you ask me. There are some countries that would have thrown them in the back of trucks, and it would have been very uncomfortable. But we don't do things like that here. Mm-hmm. We're polite and we are dignified and we are respectful. Go ahead, Bill.
Everything's politicized in everything we do. I was going to actually do a conversion here in stories. I mean, you look at Moody. They do the creditworthiness rating of the United States. When Biden was in, the outlook for the country was dismal at best.
Right.
So when they did the credit rating, they said, no, the United States has a AAA standing with Biden, even though it's a dismal outlook. Trump, they're going, okay, yeah, you know what? Even though, the tariffs are kicking in, China's capitulated, you've got all these different things going on, new announcements of factories popping up everywhere.
No inflation.
Plant. Huh?
Inflation's diminishing.
Yeah, it's all going down. But, is it 100% rosy? No. But is it better than when Biden was in? Yes. And so they sat there and said, Based on that, our creditworthiness for the first time in over a century was dropped. Well, was it based on the outlook of the country or based on the TRUMP?
Yeah, but who the hell runs Moody's? Really, who the hell runs Moody's?
Well, I don't know. That's
it's
a good
probably
question.
a bunch of liberals.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think it's not political? It's of course it's political. Everything we do. Go ahead.
That's another news story that we're not talking about is on the Jim and Bill site, but it's out there. Is Trump derangement syndrome, and it's widespread in the Democratic Party. And apparently now they want to do an actual study on it, a government study, a study on Trump derangement syndrome, and that it's basically, how do you catch it? Well, I would say the 6 o'clock news, by the liberals, but it is a disease. It is an epidemic. They all tie together.
So we have a situation where they're trying to say our economy is being affected by the Trump administration when it actually is not. I was reading yesterday some big Turkish metal company is moving over here, building a 90,000 square foot factory, going to invest billions of dollars into our country. He brought a whole
300 some odd workers hired for that, and
he had a 400 billion with a B, $400 billion contract with Boeing from, was it Saudi Arabia, for new airplanes. But I hope they have better service with Boeing than the president has had. I hope Boeing gets the airplanes out to Saudi Arabia a lot faster than he's gotten the planes out to the president.
Well, remember China? They had Boeing planes. They said, no, send them back. Now they're going, no, we want them. Get them over here. Come on, let's get them in. So those planes now are staying put if they haven't gone back. And if they have, they're going back to China. American made. But Trump is doing such a bad job. Only in the mind of a Democrat because his label is Republican and Trump and not Democrat and AOC or Biden or any other degenerate that they can put in charge. Speaking of AOC, in her own district that she represents, she hasn't paid attention to it. It's crumbling. And so the leaders that are there had to sit there and band together to work to get out a couple of, a brothel that was close to a couple of, kids' schools, children.
Yeah. But AOC's
you can't
too
make
busy.
This stuff up.
She's too busy flying around on private jets, bad-mouthing the president of the United States. She doesn't pay attention to what she's supposed to be paying attention to. But the whole left is that way. You look at Congress right now. The left, Hakeem Jeffries, those representatives who are spending their time trying to break into a federal detention center in Newark that houses murderers and rapists. In the meantime, they don't pay attention to the kids in our country, to the kids in school. You would think they'd be fighting to make schools safer. Somebody would have a plan to make schools more secure so there's never any more shootings. Maybe put a federal program together where they all have metal detectors of some kind at every door so no kid can get in with undetected metal. Just a silly little thing like that. But these congressmen are selfish, greedy, and in many cases, ignorant people.
Tell me how you really feel.
Bill, I think some of these people never graduated from elementary school, never mind high school. And God knows, I'm sure some of them never went to college. Not that that's the be-all, end-all, by the way. But, these are people who they want your respect for being intelligent, for being intellectuals, but they don't really deserve it. Look at that guy in Michigan, that Sri Thanadar, who wanted to impeach President Trump. For no good reason, by the way. None of his reasons were of any value. They just were reasons that he wanted to put out there with the hopes that he'd get some attention, which he got, and maybe some extra money from people who would send donations his way. It was a scheme on the part of Sri. Then he pulled it yesterday. And as soon as he pulled it, Al Green, Al Green, the guy who has the cane, not the singer Al Green. That guy was too talented. This Al Green is a politician who carries a cane and yells at the president when he's trying to speak.
Mm-hmm.
He put together a proposal to have him impeached.
They're going to keep going for it. In 2026, if we let them get in, and they're trying to get in, they're trying to steal it, you know they're going to bring article after article after article after article of impeachment. They will have just a long line of Democrats all lined up. Here's my, and they will. And if they got the Senate, they'll do it. And if these clowns get back in, they'll undo everything that's positive that Trump has done. They will go back and even address the tariffs and say, you know what? These great deals that we've got for us and you, screw them all. We're going to bend over. And, here's, we don't even need Vaseline, because we're Democrats. We like that.
Now, getting back for a second to the Supreme Court decision, all these decisions from all these different courts, many of them, by the way, ultimately are going to go in Trump's favor. Honest, because, they just won't have a narrative that they can follow that takes it in the other direction. They're going to have to agree with the president because the facts are on his side. I'm talking about the Supreme Court. Now, even yesterday's wasn't a slam dunk for the other side. It was more like we'll defer this and maybe look at it later on, but tell them how long due process should be. It was a really limp way of responding to this problem. But what bothers me is that every single day that goes by is a victory for the left. Every day that goes by, even if ultimately we have a victory from the process, every day that goes by with Trump being unable to do what he has to do to make the country better again is something that hurts us as a country.
They live to disrupt another day.
And that's exactly what's happening right now. We have got to do something at some point. I go back to suspend habeas corpus, yet you're not going to, the left doesn't like you now. The left doesn't like the right now, okay? That's a fact. So, with that in mind, do what has to be done. I mean, if you have to suspend habeas corpus to get these people out of the country and have to essentially ignore these ridiculous court decisions, then do what has to be done and deal with the consequences later. The people will stand behind you. You have 77 million people who think you should do the right thing.
Do you think the Constitution is a good document? We should keep it around?
I love it.
There was a time, you remember it, when the Democrats were saying, it's a living, breathing document. We need to get rid of it. It's time to get rid of it. That was
a living, breathing document. I never heard something more ridiculous in my life, Bill.
So do you think if they get in 2026 and then 2028, that they won't sit there and say, let's get this roadblock out of our way? Now's our chance to get rid of it, change it.
Well, if you think there's a problem now, try to remove the Constitution from our country and see what happens.
They're going to try. Do you think AOC wouldn't if she somehow gets into play in this?
I've heard them badmouth the Constitution. I've heard the left criticize it, call it ridiculous and an old document written by some old white guys and things like that.
And that's what they're doing. They're priming the pump here. They're priming the pump. At some point in time, they'll get back in and they'll crank up those words even more, and they'll say, the public has spoken. They want rid of this. We're the party that does something. We're going to do what you want. No, it's what they brainwashed you into wanting to do. And
the Constitution, going back to living and breathing, as if it's morphing daily into something different. The Constitution, it's a guide. It's a foundation. It's actually a rule book for our country.
Set of instructions.
Yes, this is how you run the country. It's not like this is how you run the country until you decide you should ignore these things. No, this is the country. This is the document you follow. These are the guidelines you can't vary from.
So it's the owner's manual.
Yes.
It tells you, when to change the oil, when to do this, when to do that, how to do this, how to do that. And as long as you follow the rules of this owner's manual, this vehicle that we call the United States of America is set to go for a long, long time.
Yeah, but if you don't change the oil,
break is if you break the
if you don't do the service on it, if you don't protect it and make sure that it's running properly, and that you're following all of these different guidelines, you're gonna have a problem. And that's what the other side wants. The other side doesn't love the country like you and I do. The other side doesn't care about the United States of America like its founders cared for it. They have a different set of... I heard some Yale professors yesterday saying, oh, this administration, I've seen it become so fascistic, the fascists. They're going to move out of the country. They're going to go to some place. Don't let the door hit you in the gluteus maximus. Just take a hike. Drop your... Yeah. By the way, they're not going to do that because Yale pays too well. Yale gives them a nice yearly salary plus all kind of perks and stipends and stuff like that. And, I mean, you're not going to get another job like that. So they can say what they want to say about how they're thinking of leaving. But I wouldn't hold them to it because, like so many people on the left, they're full of crap, all right? I mean, it's just the way it is. But anyway, I could go on and on. This is our weekend update program. I want to remind you that when you get a little tense thinking about what's happening in the world around you, when things get a little tight, the best way of calming down is to take a deep breath, sit down, and pour yourself a nice piping hot cup of Jim and Bill's Right Side coffee. I'm not talking about any old coffee. I mean, other coffees are nice and stuff, but Jim and Bill's Right Side coffee, it's full of flavor. It has something about it that just kind of puts the world back in balance for a few seconds. We all need that. Jim and Bill's Right Side coffee. Now you're saying, well, I would do it, but I don't know where to buy it. I've looked in stores. I don't see it. You won't find it in stores. You'll find it in the Jim and Bill gift shop. That's right. The rightsideshop.com. Rightsideshop.com. But, Bill, we've made it easy for them to find the Right Side Shop, haven't we?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, look, if you go to the old site, which is itsanotherday.com, it's up there in the top left corner. But if you go to jimandbill.com, you will see the Right Side Shop right down at the bottom of the page. It says Shop Now, little green button, big green button, actually, and takes you right to the Right Side Shop, or you can just go to rightsideshop.com. Man, we got you going every 6 ways but Sunday. We got you going every way you can.
So give us a try. Jim and Bill's Right Side coffee. It's a delicious cup of coffee. It'll make you feel in balance. Is it Zen? When things are in balance, your life is in balance. That cup of coffee will put things in balance for you. And also, we're the only coffee brand out there that employs the internationally renowned singing group Juan Jose and the Border Crossers.
Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee.
They do such a nice job with that
yes,
song.
Yes, they do.
It's the only
Good
song
guys.
that they know, but they do such a nice job.
Hey.
So
they do it well.
Did you hear about this touches at home from me? I wanted to read this.
All right.
I'm originally from southeastern Massachusetts and Rhode Island. That's where I'm from. I grew up within 25 minutes from Providence.
Are you talking about the flag?
Yeah, one of the first radio jobs I ever had was in Providence radio. I have a certain love for that little city. It's a beautiful little city. They've cleaned it up really nice. But there are some fatheads who are running the city. But it's just the way it is. And by the way, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's corruption, but New England seems to attract them more than other states. I haven't been able to figure that one out. When I was a kid, there were much more mainstream Americans in that area, but right now it's like loony leftist land, which is unfortunate. But anyway, what has happened in Providence is they plan to raise a Palestinian flag over City Hall. They should have done it yesterday. I didn't see whether they did it or not. They probably did. I mean, I didn't hear anybody talk about it being changed. So if you were in Providence and saw a strange flag over City Hall, they had the Palestinian flag, which is a terror organization. We've deemed it a terror organization, Hamas, and they are fighting one of our strongest allies in the region. And for some reason, they've turned it upside down in this country. Schools.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, Palestine, Hamas, 911.
Well, now you're getting into the conspiracy realm again. Yeah,
I'm going like,
yeah.
I didn't even put that together though yesterday, because that was yesterday. They flew the flag. I'm checking to see. There's really no talk about it. There was talk that they were going to do it, but I just did a search.
Well, 911 really related to the 8647. Yeah. So, but it's a small victory for those organizations, because in Providence there's Brown University, Rhode Island College, Johnson and Wales, Roger Williams University, all these different pretty decent schools, and there's a large Jewish population in those schools. They seem to turn their back, I don't understand that, on those people in those schools. All of a sudden, it's the in thing to embrace the other side, the terror side.
Well, Harvard's doing it.
Yeah, well, maybe that's it. Maybe they figure they got to stay in line with Harvard.
So hey, Trump's got some more funding to cut.
That's true. That's true.
Hey, you know what? To me, forget about all that Trump talk and the funding and everything. Flying the Palestinian flag over any city capital, or state capital, is just moronic and stupid. So if you have any consequences that you suffer, it's on you, baby. It is all on you. And I would remind the voters there that when elections come up,
yeah,
you know what to do.
It's amazing. The mayor of the city was asked about it. He said, well, it was a city council decision. I really didn't have any say.
Who's on the city council?
I don't know. But the thing is that he's the commander-in-chief of his city, isn't he? He's the head of his city. I would have thought he would have said, guys, pull that down. Don't do that.
But that is one thing that happens, is that a lot of these people, when they infiltrate the country, because I don't want to do name calling or anything like that, but if they can't get into Congress or Senate or like that, they'll take over a city, get into city council, and work your way up the flagpole, so to speak, to where you get positions of power that you can make things happen. Like, it's a city council decision. I'd be interested to see, and it may be nothing there, but there may be something. Who's on the city council? Where's their allegiance?
A city hall, in my opinion, should have just 3 flags on it. Maybe the city has a flag of the city, flag of the state, and a flag of our country. And that's it. It shouldn't become a display center for all of your different little organizations that you happen to support.
Yeah. Is it a signal? A flag is a signal. You're an invading country, or you're an invading force.
Yeah.
What do? You go to their flagpole, you rip down their flag, and you put up your flag. It's a means of saying,
Bill, the people on the other side, on Hamas's side, have got to be laughing at us.
We took their flag down.
Yeah. And not only that, but we didn't have to fire a shot. We got them to enthusiastically do it.
Take their flag down and fly our flag. So, no, this land is your land. No, it's their land.
That's
you
right.
gave it away. Pretty sad, don't you think? Another sad thing going on, Letitia James. She's in denial. They're trying to they're going after her for fraud, but I think that she's playing it that she is being politically prosecuted. Well, you know what? Gee, I don't know. The shoe fits.
Wear it.
So wear it. So yeah.
But actually, when you notice that when she came down with a sledgehammer on President Trump, and he came out and stood his ground, but he didn't whine like she's whining. He went out, he'd end court and he'd walk out into the gaggle of press people and he'd say a few words and he'd leave. But she's trying to pretend to be the victim. And by the way, they're also starting to talk about, it's a racial thing. Everything with these leftist politicians, it's ultimately, if they can't figure out a good answer or a good response, they start talking about it being a racial thing.
You're going to change real estate laws all over the country if the rules get blown up by her and she gets away with it. I mean, all bets are off on what happens.
Yeah.
All bets.
Hey, listen, I'm glad we stuck to our guns today. I'm glad we did what we said we were going to do when we started the program, and we made sure this show was a lot shorter because it's an update program. I'm glad that we didn't talk, over an hour. Oh, we did talk over an hour. Oh, well, I guess we didn't.
Yeah, you got to get some new batteries for your clock.
Yeah, that's probably what we got to do.
Or charge it up or something.
Hey, listen, have a great weekend, folks. Enjoy your Sunday. Get some peace. Say a prayer for our country. Say a prayer for our president because he's in a tough situation. He shouldn't have to be thinking about people trying to shoot him or hurt him. But thanks to evil people, I was going to say morons, but no, evil people like Comey, to go out and by the way, do you know that Gretchen Whitmer, 2 years ago, she had on her desk 8645, or not, maybe it was 4 years ago, 8645?
Really?
So Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, had, it was in a prominent place on her desk, 8645.
So it actually means exactly what it means.
Here's the thing. With Comey, having been the former director of the FBI, it's a far more sinister meaning. It wasn't remove the president from office. His meaning is always he was the chief law enforcement officer. He dealt with criminals.
Yeah.
Murder, crime. Go ahead, Bill.
But the correlation of Gretchen having that on her desk before, when it was 8647, that date number or that amount of days doesn't correlate to anything, I don't think. So therefore, it means 86. Get rid of 45. So that being the case, that might have just solved the problem.
What?
This is a coup on the left saying it's a call to action.
What is the odds that 8645 on that day would be the number of days between that day and 9/11 happening? I mean, what are the odds? It's like a lottery ticket coming, a winning lottery ticket. It's like,
but that would have been on the 13th. That would have been the 13th.
No, I'm not talking about her. I'm talking about what are the odds?
47.
86-47. Yeah.
Yeah, there is. It might be symbolic, and that was purposeful, but I think 8647 is exactly what we originally thought. It's a hit request. It's a hit request, and it might be because there are. Here's another theory. There are people that believe, and a matter of fact, I think it's been kind of proven that our government was behind the hit for 911, and we were actually the ones that did that. So maybe there is a cell, a group, an organization, a black ops organization of the government that's a code they understand. And they just got
who were the villains in 9/11? They were some of them were Saudis. Where was Trump a couple of days ago? He was in the Middle East. Was it a signal from Comey to have someone in the Middle East do something? And by the way, if there had been an attempt on the president, we'd never know. They wouldn't publicize it. If they stopped an attempt on the president when he was over there, they wouldn't tell you. They only tell you when it's really close or obvious or it's in the public. But if it happened behind the scenes, no, they'd keep that a secret. So we don't know. And I was under the impression this trip was going to be a little longer too. He went to Saudi Arabia and he went to Qatar and he went to UAE. I thought he was going to a couple of other places. Was it cut short?
Might have been, because I thought that I got a couple of texts last night that he was en route back.
Yeah, he supposedly landed last night around 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
So anyway, Bill, we got things to talk about on Monday show already, and here it is. We haven't even finished our weekend update. Folks, have a great weekend, and again, spread the word about the show. Like and share, okay? I'm done, Bill.
All right. Well, so am I, so there's only one thing left to do, and that is hasta la vista, baby. We're out of here.
This is CRN America.